Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tim Bryce, and I'm a forecaster with the National Weather Service in El Paso, Texas. And we're here today, and actually for the rest of the week, we're going to be talking monsoon awareness because it's Monsoon Awareness Week. I can't believe it's been a year since we just did these hangouts, and I'm so glad that everybody can join me out on YouTube and hopefully here on Facebook here in a little bit. But like I said, we're going to be talking this week about different monsoon threats. Each day has a different monsoon threat. And I want to go ahead and introduce everybody who's on the call so far and see who else. So it's me in El Paso. I have Todd Shoemake. He's forecaster up in the Albuquerque office. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing great, Tim.
Yeah. Very good. Also joining us from one of our broadcast media partners is Jorge Torres from the beautiful KOB TV in Albuquerque. How you doing, Jorge?
Doing well, Tim. Hope you're all doing well.
Very good. Thank you. And we are doing good. Also joining me here in El Paso is our WCM, Jason Laney, and our MIC, who's the boss of the office, John Fawcett. And then over from the Phoenix office is James Saltel. How are you doing, James? Oh, you're muted, sir. Wait, let me. Okay, now go again.
Greetings to everybody, and big shout out to my hometown of El Paso. Good to see you all.
Very good. And joining us here at the last second, sliding in, it's Mr. Alex Tardy from the San Diego. He's the warning coordination meteorologist over in San Diego. How are you, Alex?
Hi, everyone. I'm sliding in safe.
You are safe. Thanks for being in here to join us. All right. Well, I am so excited that we're here. Let me see if this is going on Facebook. I'm so glad that everyone could join us today. And I saw it for a second. There it is. So I'm glad that, like I said, everyone could join us today. We're so excited. We're going to be talking about Monsoon Awareness Week. Basically, we're just doing an intro today. Going to see, maybe define what the monsoon is and talk about what some of the different threats are. And then we'll go down the line and just talk it out. Now, last year we were doing these for an hour. So those of you just joining us, guess what? You don't have to sit here for an hour. We're only going to do it for 30 minutes or so. But I'm gonna put Mr. Jason Laney on the spot here. Mr. Jason, can you kind of give a broad overview and explain what the monsoon is and why we call it the monsoon?
Absolutely. Well, the monsoon is basically defined as a seasonal reversal of winds. Around much of the Southwest during the springtime, our winds come out of the west or come from the north and northwest, and that's generally a dry trajectory, so we don't see a lot of precipitation. That's one reason much of the Southwest is a desert. But once we kick things over into the summer, the pattern sets up so that the winds kind of change direction, start coming from more of the south and southeast, and that starts to draw in some moisture to the area. So really, when we talk about a monsoon, we're referring to a change in wind patterns. The fact that we get dry or wet is all because of where the wind is coming from. So many people think monsoon means rain, but we have the dry monsoon, which of course is during our springtime and early parts or latter parts of the winter there. And then we have our wet monsoon, which is what's going on right now, where you channel that air coming up around a heat low down over the desert southwest, a big area of high pressure setting out over parts of the lower Mississippi River Valley, and it picks up moisture off the Gulf of California, from deep down in tropical parts of Mexico, off the Gulf of Mexico, and sometimes it channels right over us here in this part of New Mexico, and other times it heads for our neighbors over there and parts of Arizona and Southern California. We all get a taste of that monsoon, at least the wet part of it, just about every year.
Yeah, I got up on my screen here the monsoon flow, and I was telling Todd this one really favors New Mexico, but it like Jason said, it impacts the entire area in one way or another. We see during the monsoon season that monsoon, we call it a monsoon flow, but we call it a stream of moisture moving up either from the Sea of Cortez or the Pacific off the west coast of Mexico or off the Gulf of Mexico, and it kind of funnels its way in. And that stream can either vary from basically from Midland all the way over to San Diego and Los Angeles. Some of their eastern counties can be affected by that. So it impacts a big swath of the Southwest U.S., and it brings with it many, many different threats. And I did want to talk about some of the threats that are associated with it, just so you guys know what the schedule is going to be. And it looks like, unfortunately, on Facebook, and I apologize, we don't have any audio in there. So maybe, Jason, if you can have him turn off the Facebook Live, because there's no audio going through it right now, or if you can try to figure out what's wrong. But anyway, on Monday, we're going to be talking about heat. And I think for parts of New Mexico and Arizona, that's what we're going to be seeing on Monday and Tuesday. Is going to be hot. So we're getting an early taste of that heat. On Tuesday, we'll be talking about downburst winds and microbursts and things like that from the thunderstorms. On Wednesday, my favorite, lightning. It's bright, it's exciting, but it's deadly, and we'll be talking about that. On Thursday, we'll be talking about flash floods, which is, one of the bigger threats that we see during the monsoon season. We go so long without rain, and then all of a sudden we get a lot of rain, and it can cause some of those flash flooding problems. So we'll be talking about those, and then on Friday we're going to do a beautiful wrap up of all of this. But real quickly, let me ask Todd, how does, for up in northern and central New Mexico, what are some of the main focuses you guys get for the monsoon season?
Well, I think we see a taste of all of those hazards that you outlined. We start, usually the beginning of the monsoon season starts with that heat. So yeah, we're kind of looking at some above normal temperatures right now, even this week. And then we start transitioning to some of the drier thunderstorms, as we call them. A lot of times those thunderstorms are really built up from the mid levels of the atmosphere where the moisture is. And a lot of times beneath the cloud bases, it's very dry. And so once those storms start developing, a lot of times the rain will just flat out evaporate as it falls from the cloud. So that can kind of lead to the downburst winds that you talked about. So we'll be talking about that, I guess, on Tuesday. And then right on from there, we've got the lightning threat. Just about anywhere in northern and central New Mexico, we see a lot of lightning strikes throughout the monsoon season. And then one of the more challenging things from a forecaster or a warning forecaster is the flash flooding threat. We see a lot of this rainfall that will fall very fast and furiously sometimes over a very short duration, and the ground just cannot simply absorb it all, so it turns to runoff and flash flooding.
Definitely lots of different threats out there. And, it kind of varies as the season goes along. I know, like you were mentioning early on, it's a lot of heat, maybe dry lightning. We had another fire start today in western New Mexico. So actually smoke is going to be an issue for the next couple of days. Hey, James, for you guys there in Phoenix and southern Arizona, what are some of the threats that you guys kind of focus on?
Lately, a real hot topic in the office has been dust storms, because we have a new polygon dust storm warning and a new polygon dust advisory that we will be operating from Warringen for the first time this season. And we're going to get to test it for the very first time, and it's never been tested in real world conditions. And we have that capability now, and it just recently came up, and it's alive and kicking, and we're really excited about it because, first of all, when it comes to dust storms during monsoon season, we get a lot more of them during the early monsoon season than we do in the mid or late monsoon season. And this being very early in the monsoon, well, actually, officially, the monsoon season starts on the 15th. And, but in sensible weather, we can see it. But what we have going on this week is actually could be one of the earliest in the last 18 years. In the last 18 years, we've had 5 starts, and all of those started some sort of late June. If our monsoon starts with the sensible weather that we're forecasting for late this week and next weekend due to the incoming moisture and remnant moisture that we're expecting from Hurricane Bud, we could see our earliest monsoon start in the last 18 years or ever, one of our earliest monsoon starts ever. And we could be testing that new polygon dust storm on Warngen. And it's amazing that we have that now, because it should increase the accuracy of not only the dust storm warning forecasts, but also dramatically improve the accuracy of the WEAs, or the wireless emergency alerts, on your mobile phone. So that will help only people in the path of the dust storms to receive these wireless emergency alerts, instead of them bleeding out all over the state or even other states.
Right.
And we think that's a dramatic improvement to the service that we're providing to our core partners and to the public. We're very excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great new tool that we have in our toolbox, as we could say. It'll be a great thing for us to use, as far as, in the past, I can explain it to people. When we have to issue a dust storm warning, it was based on a zone, and it would cover a very large geographic area. And usually these dust storms are very, very small. They only cover a small amount of area. So we were actually what we call overwarning. So I know this happened once in our area, that we were putting out a dust storm warning, but it covered some of our major cities, but it was only in a small part of a rural part of one of our zones. And this new tool that James was talking about is definitely going to give us a better way to fine tune that and focus in on that. So I am excited about that tool as well. But I'm gonna reach over to Mr. Alex there. Mr. Alex, people think of San Diego as beach and fun. What do you guys have to do with the monsoon season?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. Right now we're in the sunshine with big surf coming in from the southern hemisphere swell. But believe it or not, our area covers deserts, mountains that go up to 11,000 feet. And we have a monsoon that's just as real as anywhere in the Southwest. During a busy year, we'll see probably 40 or 50 flash flood warnings that we issue. And speaking of wireless emergency alerts, those go right to people's smartphone over the defined area for the flash flood warning. But just like much of the Southwest, the season starts off with heat. And in the past few years, it's been abnormally hot, especially in June, record-breaking last year and the year before. And it looks like at least above normal this year for June. And then we kind of transition in July, typically after 4th of July or right around there, into some thunderstorms in our mountains and deserts. Now, in the really fun years, fun so to speak, we'll even have thunderstorms that go right to the coast and the beach. We call those elevated thunderstorms, ones that don't need the mountains or the hot deserts like a lot of the storms need to get going. So the issue with those and other type of thunderstorms, especially in June, July, and into early August, is lightning causing wildfires. Mm-hmm. And that can be a big impact down here, especially during heat waves. And those lightning strikes can occur anywhere, remote locations, populated locations. And we're already seeing this year with incredibly dry fuels from the record dry winter we saw, already a lot of fire starts, like you mentioned earlier. They're all the way into Southern California. When we get later in the season, say August and September, our locations like Borrego Springs and Palm Springs can see some real devastating flash flooding. The challenge with that is it's literally sunny around the corner and pouring rain up the road. And getting that message out is difficult in a forecast, let alone when it's actually occurring. So those similar challenges we have going from heat to lightning causing fires to just downright too much rain at once and flash flooding. A lot of our desert areas have low water crossings, and those areas are quite prone to flooding. We have a program called When Flooded, Turn Around, Don't Drown, and we promote that across our region here. So that's it from San Diego, Tim.
Very good. I appreciate your input there. I don't think people really realize how the kind of topography that you guys cover. And now I apologize, Miss Megan. I may have sent the email to invitation to the wrong place, but I'm so glad that you could join us. Let me unmute your mic here. How are you doing there in the beautiful Flagstaff office? Oh, you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself?
There we go. Is that better?
You are perfect. Very good.
Great. Thanks for the link. Yeah, sorry for the mix-up, but I'm here.
Very good. I appreciate that. Well, let me catch you up real quick. We just kind of went over the different monsoon threats of heat, downburst lightning, and flash flooding. And then we kind of defined what the monsoon was. There in northern Arizona, you guys don't have, maybe you should say, like a heat threat so much, but what are some of the monsoon threats that you guys focus on there in northern Arizona?
Yeah, so kind of like some of the others were describing, we transition throughout the season. We do see some heat impacts. We cover the Grand Canyon, so people like to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and that's kind of our primary focus for heat impacts early on in the season. And then we sort of transition as we start to see moisture moving in. We get dry thunderstorms initially, as I think the forecaster in Albuquerque was talking about. So we see those in the high country to start out. And that can actually pose quite a big wildfire risk for us. So we get the dry thunderstorms producing lightning and some really strong winds. So if it starts a wildfire, that can be hazardous too. So that's where we start out, and then we transition into more rainfall as the season goes on. And really, we transition into a flash flood threat. So that is probably most of what we deal with up here is flash flooding. Last July, we issued so many flash flood warnings. I think it was 2 to 3 times the amount of average flash flood warnings that we issue in July. So that was kind of a crazy start to the season last year. So yeah, flash flooding is probably our biggest threat up here. In addition to lightning, I think we've touched on that a little bit too. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like to recreate up here, so anybody that's outdoors, lightning can be a really big hazard. So the lightning and the flooding is probably the most of what we deal with.
And we're going to go over all of those different threats during the week, but I kind of wanted to talk to everybody about that. But I did want to pull up I got the satellite up. I was hoping to show some of the smoke across New Mexico, but it's not showing up real well. But here's the current satellite, and it's kind of hard to see. Just off the screen down here is the Hurricane Bud and the remnants of the other hurricane, which was called what? It's I forget the name. Somebody?
Aleta,
something like that. Yeah. So we've got a fair amount of moisture sitting down here, and I think it was Jim or James over in Phoenix is going to talk about how towards the end of the week we're going to draw a lot of this moisture up, which, like he mentioned, very unusual. As a matter of fact, remember we were briefing this evening, and everyone's agreeing that, boy, this looks very fall-like. It is very unusual to pull moisture up out of the tropics from a tropical system in June. We always talk about that is a monsoon threat, but it usually is more likely to occur towards the end of August into September or even into early October. But it will be very interesting to see if we do get some moisture in here and maybe get an early start to that monsoon kind of flow. But I do want to ask our one private or our broadcast partner here, Jorge. Jorge, you have to get on the air. You have to talk to people. How are some of the challenges of communicating these different monsoon threats to the public?
I think one of the big challenges is just trying to convey to our viewers how serious certain events are. Now, when people, they hear about thunderstorms, they hear about lightning, they think, oh, this is wonderful. We need it because, New Mexico has been in an abysmal drought for the past few months. A lot of the state is under moderate to severe, even extreme to exceptional. So when they think monsoon, they think finally we get some rain, get some relief, but then there are the repercussions that can happen as a result. In fact, earlier this year, we had someone who died in a flash flood. They got swept in the man-made arroyos in and around Albuquerque. So that's something that we try to always tell our viewers is like during a flash flood event, for example, if it's maybe not raining where you are, if it's clear as clear as can be, but over the mountain they got a decent thunderstorm, and it's going to just produce runoff. If you're in the arroyos, then you are in trouble. But people are being much more attentive to what we're trying to say these days, just because they know how serious the drought is. In fact, we're seeing some of the effects of it in the form of these wildfires that are starting to burn in western and northern New Mexico, and obviously the bigger fires that are just north of New Mexico and southwestern Colorado.
So I got a picture up here of the current drought situation, and you can see it stretches all the way from there in Southern California across a big hunk of Arizona. All of Arizona and New Mexico are in some form of drought one way or another. But of course, the more serious situation is there in the red and the dark red. And like Jorge was saying, there in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico, central New Mexico, they've been having a serious drought situation. And like we saw today, I came into work. We have one fire near Mescalero, New Mexico. We had another fire out in the Gila Wilderness, and I pulled up my radar and I said, look, there was another big smoke plume. So we've got another big fire out there. So like we were talking about at the beginning of the monsoon season, as the monsoon season moves along, you get these different threats as they kind of transitions from one to the other. So we'll start off with heat and dry, and maybe get the dry lightning, get the fires, and then we get the monsoon, the moisture, and then we got the downburst threat. We've got the flash flooding threat as we move into August and September. So it's this kind of an animal that kind of changes as it's going along. It's kind of interesting how we progress. And I've even seen as a forecaster in the last 20 plus years here in the Southwest, you'll have the monsoon, that big monsoon flow, and you can just actually see it on the computer models or the satellites. It's just this big plume of moisture, and that's what we refer to it as, like a plume of moisture. And it'll wobble back and forth, and it'll wobble over towards San Diego's eastern part of the area into Phoenix, stick in the central part of Arizona, and then it wobbles back into New Mexico. And that's where you really get juiced up. That's where you get a lot of that fuel to give you those thunderstorms. But even when it wobbles away, you still got enough moisture lingering around to continue those threats of like the lightning and the downburst winds. In particular, the downburst winds, it takes a little bit of dry air to get those threats kind of going. So I've really enjoyed today's conversation, but like I said, we're keeping it kind of short today. So I guess we're going to kind of wrap things up here real quickly. But I'll start things up with my coworkers here in El Paso, Jason and John. What is the one thing as we look forward to this week that you want people to kind of take away as we go forward for this week?
Well, first of all, you want to remember that, monsoon season starts June 15th and goes through September 30th. But the actual monsoon is up and down in between those dates. We went to monsoon season several years ago, thanks to the MIC in Phoenix back then, Tony Haffer. A lot of people were getting confused at monsoon itself. And wait a minute, the monsoon's in Southern Asia. We don't have that here. We only get a few inches of rain a year. Oh, come on. It's more than half our rainfall, and it is a monsoon. I just don't want people to be, downplaying the fact that, we may only get 8 to 10 inches of rain a year here in El Paso, more than half of that during the monsoon. But remember the desert Southwest? The water doesn't soak in very well. It runs off. And so we probably need only half the rainfall Dallas-Fort Worth would need for flash flooding. And it is a real dangerous thing. And all the elements that were talked about by all the folks here from the National Weather Service at various offices, it's real. You folks really need to pay attention to it. Lives are taken each year, and it's not fun. Some of these things, and I'm guilty of this, we want to look at probably like the people in the Midwest. A tornado warning's issued. Oh, let's go out. Where is it? Where is it? I can kind of do that with lightning. I kind of want to look out the window and when lightning's hitting nearby. No. We've got to follow the safety rules. And I'm looking forward to what it's going to be like for the rest of this week as different offices focus on a hazard. Jason?
You summed it up very nicely there, John. So we'll let the others kind of chime in here. Keep in mind, though, we're going to be talking about specific topics every day coming up this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about heat, and that's something we've had plenty of. We're going to get into the downburst, the dust. We'll talk about the lightning. We'll talk about the flooding. Then we're going to wrap it all up on Friday with basically the monsoon and you. What does the monsoon mean for you in your everyday life? Maybe it's your vacation plans. Maybe it's what you want to do on the weekend. Maybe it's just going to work every day. But the monsoon does impact this entire area and everybody. And so that's what this Awareness Week is all about, making sure everybody knows how to stay safe and still be able to enjoy the lovely summers here in the desert
Oh, yeah.
Southwest.
And I also wanted to assure folks out there that even though Jorge is an Aggie, he still knows what he's talking about.
Oh, come on now.
That's hard.
Hey.
But John's right. You know, we talk about monsoon season. We can be in the middle of monsoon season and it can be dry as a bone and pretty hot. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have that thunderstorm that day. It just means that conditions, kind of like the hurricane season, they don't have hurricanes every day during hurricane season. And as we saw this year, you can have tropical systems just outside of hurricane season. And like James was talking about earlier, we might get an early kickstart to our monsoon season, or it might come in just right on, June 15th is when we start monsoon season, but it doesn't necessarily mean on June 15th, the moisture is going to be right there. But this year, that might be the case. So our fingers are crossed because we would like to get an early good wetting rain to kind of put some of these fires out, or at least reduce the risk of them. Todd, what are you looking forward to this week as we go forward in Monsoon Awareness Week?
Well, it is very interesting to hear, I get kind of focused on New Mexico a lot of times, but it's very interesting to hear the perspective of everyone across the Southwest. And we're all dealing with very similar hazards. Some of the timing's a little bit different. Some of the intensity is a little bit different from geographical location to location, but it's very, very interesting to hear how different partners across the Weather Service handle really the same hazards. But yeah, I guess for me, I just kind of want to echo what John says, and it's just, the monsoon hazards really can be life-threatening. And so I was just looking over at my wife. She's on the couch. She's also a meteorologist, and she was saying it just takes one storm, and that one storm could be fatal. So we urge you to just check the forecast if you're going outside, doing any kind of outdoor recreation, things like that. Just be prepared.
Yeah, and you and your wife are exactly right. It sometimes takes just one storm. Sometimes it just takes one lightning bolt to really, really ruin your day. We every year during the monsoon season, you'll see these rain shafts all over the place, and many times they just fall out in the desert. They don't impact anybody. But if they fall in the right basin at the right intensity, and all of a sudden this big gush of water comes out at some low water crossing, or worse yet, if it happened to occur over a recent burn scar. We've seen that many times in Arizona and in California. We saw that just in this last winter season. We've seen it here in New Mexico. It can really enhance the flash flooding risk, where it would have taken maybe half an inch to an inch of rain in 10 or 15 minutes to cause a flash flood, to really you need less than a quarter inch of rain in just a few minutes to really bring a big debris flow coming down and can cause a lot of problems. So it's definitely, like you said, it just takes one. Mr. Alec, as we move forward here this week, what are you guys looking for there in San Diego?
Yeah, Tim, everyone, we're not looking forward to the heat. It looks like we're going to have another heat wave coming up. It won't be so bad on the coast of San Diego in the 80s, but we've already seen temperatures hit 112, 113 in Palm Springs and Borrego Springs desert area. So that's definitely the real setup for the monsoon season to kick off. The theme of all this is safety, of course, and we're not going to stop the heat waves or the flash floods or the big lightning bolts. But there are things we can do to prepare to be more aware of what's going on around us. And in case we do encounter nasty monsoon weather, whether it be a dust storm, a flash flood, there's things that we can do. We can have a plan B and somehow get out of that type of situation. So being prepared is all a part of this week. And we're looking forward to talking more specifically about heat tomorrow.
Yeah, and Alex is exactly right. Without that heat low, it's much harder to draw in that moisture. So whether you like it or not, sometimes we need the heat. And actually, with it being so hot there at the end of May into the beginning of June, if we can really get that heat, we might be able to draw in a little extra monsoon moisture and get, like we've been talking about, an early kickstart to the monsoon season. Miss Megan, a little different up there, a little elevation that you guys are there in Flagstaff. What are you guys looking forward there during this week of Monsoon Awareness Week?
Yeah, I have to say, most of all, I'm looking forward to the potential of actually seeing some rain later this week and maybe this weekend. It's been very, very dry. It was a really dry winter up here. So honestly, everybody's just on edge with wildfire season.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of a blessing that we might see some moisture this weekend. We're really looking forward to it. But just to echo what everybody else has said, we want to make sure that people aren't caught off guard. So everybody's looking forward to the rain. We're excited. I love thunderstorms too, but just making sure that you check the forecast before you head out. Know what the risks are. Know that lightning is lightning, whether the thunderstorm produces rainfall or not. Lightning is still a risk. So just making sure that people are prepared. Check the forecast before you head outside. We've had a lot of forest closures here, and so people are really anxious to get outside and enjoy the outdoors. So making sure that we are prepared and weather ready before you head out, I think, is the key for us here.
And you bring up a great point. As I tell people, they'll go, "Hey, I got a barbecue? Is it going to rain tomorrow?" And I say, "There's a chance of rain, but don't change your plans. But have a backup plan. Have an idea. If you hear thunder, you need to go indoors immediately and get outside. Get inside, away from that thunder and that lightning threat. Be aware if you're driving in the wilderness and you've got water going across the road. Do you turn around or do you just wait it out? But like Megan said, have a plan, have an idea of what you're going to do, because you never know when one of these threats is going to come in the form of that you can be outside, and we all like to get out and enjoy the weather. And it could be in the form of just heavy rain. It could be in a downburst wind. It could be lightning. But hopefully by going through each of these days as we talk through the different threats, because we'll be talking specifically about the safety that you can do to protect you and your family from those different threats, you guys can at least be aware of and have a plan or have an idea in the back of your mind what you should do. James, there in Phoenix, what are you guys looking forward to for this monsoon week?
Well, I think a lot of people across the desert Southwest look forward to the resumption of rainfall after having a very dry spring and early summer. And at the same time, we really do have to focus on safety. And when you make those preparations that you've been talking about to make yourself aware and prepared and safe for any eventuality, whether you're at home or out in your car, you're helping your community by taking responsibility for your own safety, and you're helping to build a weather-ready nation. And we here at the National Weather Service, that's what we think it's all about. It's all about building a weather-ready nation, and building a weather-ready nation starts with you. It's what you can do to keep yourself and your family safe and prepared and resilient, and to keep weather safety in the top of your mind, and for top of your mind awareness. It's the way to go.
Yeah, wise words. And we're going to cover a lot of that this week and try to help everybody be a little better prepared as we go forward. Jorge, I'm going to give you the last word here. I know that you could talk on and on, as we all could, about this, but from your perspective as a broadcast meteorologist, what are you looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward that we may incorporate all of these topics into the actual forecast this week, because with the moisture from Bud coming in, I mean, we're going to have heat. We already have that in place. Microbursts are a possibility. In fact, we had a few just this past week in the Albuquerque metro area with some dry thunderstorms. Lightning, obviously, that's going to happen potentially. Flash flooding could be an issue, especially in those burn scar areas. One that comes to mind, at least in this part of the state, is the Doghead burn scar, which is in the Manzanos, fire that happened a couple of years ago, and it still produces flash flooding. That's going to be an issue, obviously, around the arroyos too. So Every day I'm going to try to talk about these topics during my broadcasts, and what's going to make it easier is that I can incorporate it into the actual weather scenario that's potentially going to occur over the next few days.
Yeah, definitely. It could be quite an interesting week if we see all the monsoon threats in the first week as we just even start the monsoon season. But that doesn't mean that it'll, like I mentioned, it's going to kind of come and go. The monsoon flow ebbs and flows back and forth. And, one day the threat could be downburst winds. The next day it could be the flash flooding threat or just lightning, because you can get, deadly lightning from any thunderstorm. I've seen periods where, we'll get into July and all of a sudden we just dry out and we start to heat back up. So anytime during this monsoon season, we could see any of these threats. But it is interesting, like Jorge mentioned, that we could see them all just this week as we kind of press forward with the advent of the heat and then the moisture later on in this week. Well, I'm going to wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for joining us on YouTube. You guys were great hanging with us for this time. I want to thank all my panelists who joined me today. You guys all did great. I certainly couldn't do this without you. The expertise in all the different offices is always amazing. They always have great insights. I get a little focused here in my little niche. So it's good, like some of the other guys and gals were talking about, how it's good to see how the different weather offices around the Weather Service handle different threats and the different tools that we have at our disposal to use. So remember, join us same time tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday as we talk about the specific different threats of this upcoming monsoon season. So thanks for joining us and have a great day.